Ravanachari. Yamunati Ravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari. Gopi Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari. Gopi Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunati Ravanachari. Yamunati Ravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunati Ravanachari. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Ho Radha Kalashanji Radha Kalashanji Sri Radhe. Jai Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Sri Radhe. Jai Radha Shamasundar Radha Shamasundar Sri Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Together, please, both Sanskrit and English. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devyam sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Sri Vyasadeva, the author. Nastapreya Shabreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome in the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who's praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyantimarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll start with chapter 7. 13, text 1, we'll go to 10, titled The Behavior of Perfect Person. We're going to talk about the sannyasi at the beginning. Uh-oh, we don't have a mic. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare. Thank you, Manjari Gopiya, for grabbing the mic.
Sri Narada Muni said, "A person able to cultivate spiritual knowledge should renounce all material connections. In merely keeping the body inhabitable, he should travel from one place to another, passing only one night in each village. In this way, without dependence in regards to the needs of the body, the sannyasi should travel all over the world."
A person in the renounced order of life may try to avoid even a dress to cover himself. If he wears anything at all, it should be only a loincloth. And when there is no necessity, a sannyasi should not even accept a danda. A sannyasi should avoid carrying anything but a danda and a kamandalu.
The sannyasi, completely satisfied in the self, should live on alms begged from door to door, not being dependent on any person or any place. He should always be friendly, well-wisher to all living entities and be peaceful. an alloyed devotee of Narayan. In this way, he should move from one place to another.
The sannyasi should always try to see the Supreme pervading everything and see everything, including this universe resting on the Supreme.
During unconsciousness and consciousness, and between the two, he should try to understand the self and be fully situated in the self. In this way, he should realize that the conditional and liberated stages of life are only illusionary and not actually factual. With such a higher understanding, he should see only the absolute truth pervading everything.
Since the material body is sure to be vanquished and the duration of one's life is not fixed, neither death nor life is to be praised. Rather, one should observe the eternal time factor in which the living entity manifests himself and disappears.
Text 7. Literature that is a useless waste of time. In other words, literature without spiritual benefit should be rejected. One should not become a professional teacher as a means of earning one's livelihood, nor should one indulge in arguments and counter-arguments, nor should one take shelter of any cause or fraction.
A sannyasi must not present allurements of material benefits to gather many disciples, nor should he unnecessarily read many books or give discourses as a means of livelihood. He must never attempt to increase material opulences unnecessarily.
A peaceful, equipoised person who is factually advanced in spiritual consciousness does not need to accept the symbols of a sannyasi, such as the Tridanda and Kamandalu. According to necessity, he may sometimes accept those symbols and sometimes reject them.
Although a saintly person may not expose himself to the vision of human society, by his behavior, his purpose is disclosed. To human society, he should present himself like a restless child, and although he is the greatest thoughtful orator, he should present himself like a dumb man.
Who's ready to take sannyas? Raise your hand. Really? Can you imagine going door to door in a loincloth? I can't. Can't imagine begging alms every day. I like my stove, my oven. I like my Radha Kalashanji Mahaprasadam. Okay, 7-3-13-9. Nayatir asrama prayo. Nayatir asrama ma prayo. Dharma hetru mahatmanaha. Dharma hetur mahatmanaha. Santasya samachityasya. Santasya samachityasya. Bibhiryad uttava tyajat jet. Bibhiryad uttava tyajat. Nayatir asrama prayo. Dharma hetur mahatmanaha. Santasya samachityasya. Bibhiryadutavatajit. Jait. Jait. Okay. Bolo, please. Yayatirasrama prayo. Mahatmanaha. Atmanaha. Yasya Yaduttahachayat Asrama Prayo Yaduttavachayat. Okay, let's go to the word for word meaning, please, together. Na, not, yate, of the sannyasis. Asramaha, the symbolic dress with danda and kamandala. Raya, almost always. Dharma, hetu, the cause of advancement in spiritual life. Mahatmana, who is factually exalted and advanced. Santasya, who is peaceful. Samatityasya, who has attained the stage of being equiposed. Bibirayat, one may accept with symbolic signs. Uta, indeed. Va, or. Tajet, one may give up. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. A peaceful, equiposed person who is factually advanced in spiritual consciousness does not need to accept the symbols of a sannyasi, such as the tridanda and the kamandalu. According to necessity, he may sometimes accept those symbols and sometimes reject them. Purport. There are 4 stages of the renounced order of life: Kutikchaka, Bahudaka, Prakavajakacharya, and Parahamsa. Herein, Srimad Bhagavatam considers the Paramhamsas among the sannyasis. The Mayavadi impersonalist sannyasis cannot attain the Paramahamsa stage. This is because of their impersonal conception of the absolute truth. Brahmeti, Paramamiti, Bhagavaniti, Sadhyate. The absolute truth is perceived in 3 stages, of which Bhagavan, or realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is meant for the Paramahamsas. Indeed, Srimad Bhagavatam itself is meant for the Paramahamsams, Paramo Nirmata Saranam Satam. Unless one is in the Paramahamsa stage, he is not eligible to understand Srimad Bhagavatam. Wow. For Paramahamsas or sannyasis in the Vaishnava order, preaching is the first duty. To preach, such sannyasis may accept the symbol of sannyasis, such as the danda and kamandala, or sometimes they may not. Generally, the Vaishnava sannyasis, being Paramahamsas, are automatically called Babajis, and they do not carry a kamandala or a danda. Such a sannyasi is free to accept or reject the marks of a sannyasa. His only thought is, where is there an opportunity to spread Krishna consciousness? Sometimes the Krishna consciousness movement sends its representative sannyasis to foreign countries where the danda and the kamandala are not very much appreciated. We send our preachers in ordinary dress to introduce our books and philosophy. Our only concern is to attract people to Krishna consciousness. We may do this in the dress of a sannyasis or in the regular dress of gentlemen. Our only concern is to spread interest in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, Srila Prabhupada mentions that there's 4 orders of the sannyas order, and here the Srimad Bhagavatam is talking about the Paramahamsa. So don't worry. if we want to become sannyas, we maybe don't have to walk around in a loincloth. Or maybe we do, depending on our preaching. Right? So it's a very thought out system, the Varnashram Dharma system. And in the system of being brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and then taking the sannyas order of life, one is expanding on their preaching. So we become grihasthas, and our preaching is more focused onto our family unit, right? Although, as a family unit, we may choose together about how we can spread Krishna consciousness. But because of the situation of making money and maintaining our grihastha ashram, our preaching sometimes is limited in the influence we can spread it. But we can be very progressive as devotees and think about how we can share our Krishna consciousness within our grihastha ashram in so many different ways, right? Bring cookies to the office. You know, devotees are doing these. Then this thing happens where our children become of an age where they're not so dependent on us, right? And so naturally, the parents start asking, where am I? What's my position? What do I do? What's my service? Right? I've noticed in this in my life and my wife's life. My kids are 19 and 17. And so it's a change. It's a real shift in your consciousness. And you start asking yourself, okay, well, what is my position? What is my identity, you could say? How am I preaching? And my wife is doing really well, but I could see for the first while, it was really tough on her because she was like, I'm mom. And the kids, not that she isn't always mom, but there's a shift in the way that mom's identity is. You know, the kids aren't seeing mom in this way of so much necessity. And so there's this big life change when your kids start to get that age where they're not so dependent on you. And then in the Krishna consciousness movement, because we're thinking about preaching, we start to look outside of the family unit about how we can preach, right? And if we're doing this right in society, then the grihastha takes vanaprastha, and in vanaprastha, they have so many people to preach to in the grihastha ashram. Oh, I've been there. I've done it. I can help you to accelerate your service and how you serve your children. I've had these problems. I've been there. I've done that. Now I have some vigyan. I have some realized knowledge that I can share with you to help you to further facilitate your Krishna consciousness, right? So then in the vanaprastha stage, there's so many grihastha families that we can help, right? We can mentor, we can encourage, and empower these grihastha companies about how to not get frustrated with the grihastha ashram, because that's often what happens is we become frustrated with the grihastha ashram because we don't know how to expand our Krishna consciousness or make nice progress. And so then we say, oh, let me become sannyas. Let me falsely renounce this, but it's not even sannyas, it's false renouncement, right? Okay. Then after vanaprastha, we started to get in the groove of mentoring grihasthas. We've helped them so much. And we come to this point where our bodies start to become old, right? We can't move as much as maybe we like. We don't have the energy of life. And so naturally, death starts to come into our mind. Oh, wait a minute, my end of my life is coming. But the interesting thing about this is that the devotee who's interested in the end of life and that going back to home, back to Godhead, they have that chance to reflect on the progress that they've made, the mentorship that they've given, the shiksha that their guru is given. And in this state, you can say that your appreciation for how much you've progressed, you're actually tasting the holy name, you're actually tasting this Krishna consciousness, and so your desire to spread Krishna consciousness becomes even more, right? You taste good pizza, you want to share it with people. Once you start to taste Krishna consciousness more, you want to share it with people. And so, the sannyasa order isn't necessarily to unattach us with society, but it's to keep us unattached to material opulences, right? Because when we are in contact, in our conditioned state, when we come in contact with the material nature, it has a tendency to influence us, right? But in Krishna consciousness, we're trying to let that influence help us in our Krishna consciousness. So, what does that mean? In the Grihastha ashram, we're parents, we're serving our children, we're serving our community in this way. It's natural that the influence of conditioning to your children is going to happen. Okay, but let's take that and understand that, how do I see that in Krishna consciousness? Well, my child is my gift from Krishna, and therefore my service is to serve my children. So it doesn't say let's become unattached to our children. It says let's become more attached to them in the sense of, this is my service. Srila Prabhupada was asked about this, about Srila Prabhupada. I'm having this difficulty chanting my rounds. And I'm having these difficulties, and what did he say? He said, please look at your children like they're your deities. Wow. Look at your children as they're your deities. We're meant to look at the guru as the representative of Krishna, but can we get to the mindset or the perception that our kids are representative of Krishna? Wow. That takes a little bit of, or a lot of renunciation. It takes a lot of renunciation in the sense that we're not attached to our material bodies, that these are my children. I am going to tell them what I think they should do. It's more of, these are Krishna's children, and I'm going to help them flourish in their service to Krishna, right? But then, like I mentioned, our kids become older, and so naturally this shift in our influence, the influence of material nature shifts, right? Our children are like, hey, I want my independence. So, okay, where's our influence coming from from material nature? Well, we usually have spent so much time building a nice community, right? We've gained friends, we've connections, a network of people. Okay, how can I fit into this to help? How can I fit in here to serve? How can I mentorship? It's really natural. It's very beautiful, And then you get to the end of life and you go, wait a minute, I'm about to die and I'm starting to taste Krishna consciousness. Let me find some way that I am removing myself from the material conditions, so that I can best put myself in a position to, at the time of death, to chant Hare Krishna. And so Srila Prabhupada, in this purport, he's explained that the sannyasi is constantly thinking, how can I preach this Krishna consciousness movement? And that's that's done in a very broad-minded way, right? We have so many sannyasis in our International Society for Krishna Consciousness that have so many different natures, right? Some of them intellectual, some of them like to run ashrams that are very pukka in the brahmachari ashram, right? Bhakti Vikas Swami, he has this Krishna Life ashram that very, very staunch, you know, and it attracts a certain quality of person, right? There's some people that really like that. And then we have Krishna West with Nanda-braja, who's like, hey, this is my style, right? But we shouldn't sit here and bicker within our International Society of Krishna Consciousness about who's right and who's wrong. We should try to understand that, are they trying to spread Krishna consciousness? And you can look and you can see that their activities are for spreading Krishna consciousness. They might not jive with you. I might not understand it. It might not be my authenticity. But we should also try to become broad-minded and understand that this authenticity that they're bringing is very unique and a very unique way to bring people to Krishna consciousness. And so we should appreciate it. The thing, though, is that in the sannyas order, currently in our situation, is we have difficulties appreciating the sannyas order because quite often our sannyasis are in a management positions, and this makes it very difficult for them. Sannyas order isn't meant for managing. What do I mean by that? Okay, you're in the sannyas order and you're managing, and because of your detachment and your renunciation, you're supposed to be able to speak very clearly, very straightforward, right? But you say something straightforward, and all of a sudden you're not invited next year to that temple. Oh, I hurt somebody's feelings. And all of a sudden you're not asked to come back that next year to. But us as grihastas, brahmacharis, and vanaprasthas, we're supposed to have this respect in the sense of the sannyas order, that they are pulling us away from our attachments and trying to give us some clarity that we can't see. See, because of our conditioned state and going through this process of growing, it's often very difficult for us to have a perception of where we're at. Matter of fact, we surround ourselves with other grihasta families, and we kind of get into our groove, right? And so what pulls us in to that next, pulls us out of our contentment, our norm? Well, it's the sannyasi who's traveling around the world and has no detachment in the sense of, I'm not here to make you feel good or bad or this or that. I'm here to help you remember that the ultimate goal of life is to serve Krishna, right? And so sometimes they might say something that's a little bit piercing, right? So, us, because we're not in the sannyas order, we should try to understand like this, that they're giving us an opportunity to look outside of our norms, our daily habits, and to introspect, where am I? Am I serving my children because they're my children, or am I serving my children because they're Krishna's children? I heard one sannyasi talking about how he was encouraging one of his disciples not to cook for their children, but to cook for Krishna. And I was like, okay, that's nice, right? Because we do that, right? We cook, and what's on our mind is what this person likes. That's what he was saying. He was like, so please stop trying to cook what your kids like and start to try to think about what Krishna likes, Okay, that's this perspective of trying to get us to shift from this attachment to our children to Krishna. However, we do need to be practical in the sense that we do have our children and they won't eat this or that. Okay, so how do we do that? We understand that it's our service to Krishna. It's my service to Krishna to feed my kids nicely, to help them healthy. And therefore it becomes non-different than Krishna, right? Okay, because we're conditioned, will we have the tendency to see them as my children? Yes. But this progress, this system, this process is to help us to take step by step by step by step by step to get to a point where we can take the mindset of a sannyasi, right? detachment is very, a renunciation is very strong. It can really help somebody to see more clearly. However, we have to be attached to the renunciation of material things and not to the renunciation of our service. As devotees, we're actually in a really cool position because what we do is we start to accept material energy and start to transform it in a way that is beneficial for Krishna's service, and it becomes spiritual energy. So we don't say no, 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 no. We say, is this for my service? Is this something I can use in Krishna's service? How do I use it in service? And if you can't see how to use it in Krishna's service, you ask your mentor. You ask the Vanapras. You ask the person who's been ahead before you. And we get them their point of view, and they help us practically with the situation, and they teach us also how to connect it with Krishna. Right? 8:16. I'll stop right there and see if we have any questions, comments, thoughts, corrections. Are we ready to take sannyas? Let's go.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Nanda-braja, for a nice class. Yeah, I was thinking in the purport that we read, Prabhupada started off talking about the stages of sannyas. So I'm not sure if there's like actual words to designate stages in other ashrams.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I feel like there are stages in other ashrams. You know, if you look back at it's like, like with Grihasta, someone starts transitioning into Grihasta, maybe starting thinking about career, thinking about marriage, right? There's a stage where you're just thinking about it. And then you start actually, engaging and earning money, and that's another stage. And then you have children, and that puts you in a totally different stage of Grihasta. Then your children are getting older, like you were saying. The children are older. Then it's like, there's like these definite marked shifts, in consciousness as you go through Grihasta ashram, Brahmacharya ashram, same thing. In the beginning you're like gung-ho, after you kind of like level out, and then maybe you start feeling like you're outgrowing the ashram or something, or you need to engage yourself in different ways in order to maintain that ashram if you plan to do it for life. And then, Vanaprastha ashram is like, it's like just beginning to, okay, so we're not going to be so romantically involved anymore. We're getting older. This is kind of like, it's finding itself up. And then, it's sort of a gradual detachment. And then sannyas, so Kutichak is the first one. And that's when the husband, he's still like at home, but he's living kind of basically in a shed in the backyard. He has his kutir. Basically, that's what it is. His little kutir in the backyard. He lives there, and his wife brings him his meals. So he's still being cooked. His wife's still cooking for him. And then Bahudak Bahu means many. So it means instead of just getting meals from his wife, the neighbors will be bringing him food. Or he'll go to the door, he'll knock on doors of neighbors, and they'll give him food. But he's still kind of in the village. And then, but he's a little more detached because he's not dependent on his wife anymore. He's realizing that actually I don't need my wife to cook for me. The neighbors will cook, other people will cook for me. And then Parivrajikacharya is when he actually leaves the village and he starts traveling. Because then he's like, oh, well, if people in this village will feed me, then people in other villages will feed me. I can travel from village to village, town to town, state to state, and I can do this. So he's building confidence, he's building faith that the Lord is going to take care of him even when he leaves home. And then Paramahamsa is, but at that stage, Parivrajikacharya stage, he needs to travel. That's when he kind of like bird leaves the nest, and he's like flying. And it's important at that stage for him to actually travel, because if he goes back home, he could get attached again. Even back to his village, he could get back into his old patterns, so he has to travel. But then Paramahamsa is a stage where he can be anywhere, and it just doesn't matter, because his detachment is not something external, it's like internal. He's just, he can be in his village, he can even see his former wife, be in the same room with her or something, and he's not going to bring anything back. He can dress as a sannyasi, Because in the beginning, he has to dress as a sannyasi. Right? We have that also in ISKCON, that I think for the first 10 years or something, sannyas ministry requires them to carry the danda, because there's very much like an identity that he's forming. He has to start identifying with the ashram. I am a sannyasi. This is what a sannyasi does. I need to follow the rules of my ashram. But then later, it's like his renunciation is so deeply internalized that he's not dependent on the external symbols. He's not dependent on the situation. He can be in any situation. He can wear any clothes, and he's going to be renounced, because that's the state of his consciousness. So I just thought it was interesting to think about how Varnashram it's very human friendly. It really kind of works with the way human psychology is, in that we don't do well when we just jump. We're thrown in the deep end. We struggle and we sometimes drown when that happens. But it's very natural, very gradual transition from one ashram to the other, and growing within the ashram, which gradually leads us to the next ashram. And then the Paramahamsa, he's just like, basically, life or death doesn't matter, because he's just on the transcendental platform. So he's and he doesn't have attachments to his village, his family, his danda, anything, his clothes, anything. He's just serving Krishna, and that's it. And he can do that in this world or the next world. It's all the same. Just some thoughts on topics.
Thank you for that explanation, Mataji. I always heard of Prabhupada using Parivrajaka, so now I really know what it actually means.
Paramhamsa.
Yes. So now I know why they really call you. Thank you for nice class, Prabhuji. This question is actually on behalf of Jayesh now. He wants to know. So this is from text 2. It says a sannyasi should not even accept a danda, and in the next line it says he should avoid carrying anything but danda and kamandalu. So he just wants to know why there is two opposites in the same paragraph.
He wants to know what? I'm sorry?
So in the previous line it says he should not accept even a danda. In the next line it says he should not accept anything other than danda.
If he wears anything else. Let's see what Srila Prabhupada says in the purport. Can we go to the purport of... oh, there's no purport. Never mind. Okay. So, as we went through the purport that we just read, is Srila Prabhupada saying that the sannyasi's point of view is what's best for my Krishna consciousness. How do I preach, right? And so, whether he takes the danda or whether the danda is not necessary is because he's seeing, is this best for my preaching? Is this best for the other people? Is this going to help my preaching? So when there's no necessity, my question for you would be, and when there is no necessity? So to a sannyasi, when is there no necessity? Thank you, Drista. Right? So when it's not helpful to their preaching, there's no necessity, right? When it's for their preaching, then it is necessary, right? So Prabhupada Priya Prabhu was explaining that in ISKCON, they have the sannyasi carry their danda for 10 years, right? Why? Because it's necessary for their perception of how to perceive and how they've taken this order, and that's their preaching, right? So it helps them to identify, I'm in the sannyas order, and this is my preaching, and therefore I accept it. And so it's a constant reminder, right? So Srila Prabhupada called our tilak like a uniform, right? So when we put on our tilak, it reminds us subtly or consciously or unconsciously that we're devotees, right? Sometimes we just put it on and don't think about it, but there's still behind closed doors, behind our thinking, is, oh, I'm doing this because I'm a devotee. Oh, put it on, there we go. I'm here to please Krishna, right? So the perspective of the sannyasis is this helpful for my preaching or not helpful for my preaching, right? Imagine you're on an airplane, you got your danda. It might be a problem, right? So let me leave my danda at home. Let me go. What do you think? What's your thoughts? You want to go tell your mom? Or can you grab a mic and say something? No? You're good? Okay? Where are you? Here? Here? Okay. Good.
In the Mayapur Gurukul, there's one boy who I know that he makes these dandas out of bamboo, but they're like hinged in two places, so it folds into thirds, and you can put it in a suitcase.
There you go. I really like to emphasize this part. We send our preachers, Srila Prabhupada says, we send our preachers in ordinary dress to introduce our books and philosophy. Our only concern is to attract people to Krishna consciousness. And this is the great mind, the great devotion of Srila Prabhupada. He was only concerned about giving people Krishna consciousness. So he said, we do that in whatever way. There's 4 regular principles. These things we don't do, right? But outside of it, is this good for spreading Krishna consciousness? The other day I was on Facebook where all arguments happen, right? This person was saying, pizza, Srila Prabhupada was given pizza once, and Srila Prabhupada said, I've given you sandish, and you give me this pizza. What kind of nonsense is this? And the person was like, well, but think about this. The person was like, pizza's not bona fide. I was like, wait a minute, time out here. Let's take this on a personal level. Was Srila Prabhupada saying pizza was nonsense? Or that Srila Prabhupada gave somebody sandish because that's the thing he likes? If I say, I like this for my birthday, and you give me something I don't like, I'm going to kind of think you're nonsense because I already gave you the instruction about what I want for my birthday, and you gave me something completely opposite. Is that thing not beneficial to somebody else for their birthday? Yes. Somebody might want a Barbie, but if I give Jaishnav a Barbie, he's probably going to be upset. Nanda-braja, why are you giving me a Barbie? That's ridiculous. But a Barbie still is good for somebody else, right? So it wasn't the pizza was nonsense. It was Srila Prabhupada saying, I'm your spiritual master and I'm asking you for sandish. I gave you the recipe for it and you bring me pizza. So we think like that sometimes. We think we hear something and we go, oh, let's throw it out. But let's try to understand that we have a personal, we're meant to be persons, right? And so this person, I was like, so I explained that. I said, hey, I really take it as Srila Prabhupada didn't want pizza at that time. He wanted sandish. Not that pizza's nonsense. Like, please stop making up regular principles. The 5th regular principle, thou shalt not eat pizza. No. Like, okay, let's make sure our pizza doesn't have onions and garlics and, okay. And he shot back. This is why I don't like Facebook, because it's like, it kind of gets me a little, I usually stay out of arguments, like really like, and here I am bringing up one. And it wasn't an argument. It wasn't an argument really, but he said, Srila Prabhupada wanted us to accept Indian way of living, and that's why he wants us to stay in a kurta, and that's why he wants us to dress in a dhoti, and that's why he wants women in saris. And he goes, don't you read Srila Prabhupada's letters? I said, wait, time out. We're not talking about a letter here, for one thing. We're talking about something Srila Prabhupada said, and you're making an assumption here that I read Srila Prabhupada's letters or not. So pretty much after that, you're making assumptions and being rude here. Okay, and then I read this. I was like, copy, paste. I mean, look at it. It's like, it's right there. It's like, no, it doesn't say Srila Prabhupada clearly in his purport, which he said is the law book for 10,000 years, is saying this. It's very clear. We don't have to talk about this conversation that Srila Prabhupada, not that there's not values in there is, but Srila Prabhupada put an emphasis on his books. By the way, we just had a big thing of Ridvik going on, and there's not one mention of this in Srila Prabhupada's books. Is it wrong or right? I don't know. There's a letter, I guess, or this or that. You know what? I'm not intelligent enough to get there. But when I read Srila Prabhupada's books, I sure as heck don't see it. So what am I supposed to do? You know? But my point is we take Srila Prabhupada's books as his shiksha to us directly. These are the law books, and so we read it. And so when we read something like, we send our preachers in ordinary dress to introduce our books and philosophy, our only concern is to attract people in Krishna consciousness. We should take that very seriously. And we should also try to see the perception of what people are trying to do and how they're trying to preach, how they're connecting with people so that they can spread Krishna consciousness. Yes.
Yeah, I was just thinking, as we were reading this purport, it was like, we just had Hridaya Nanda-braja visiting, and this is like, it was just describing him. It was just like a description of his whole thing.
Absolutely.
Because, and it's just, sad in a sense that, when he started preaching and wearing Western clothes, going to universities, and then beyond just that, but also encouraging other devotees that you can also do this. You don't have to go out in a dhoti. You don't have to go out in a sari. You can wear clothes that people, see as, normal and respectable, if it makes them listen to you more, if they don't just write you off as somebody super weird, And then, but because he was, saying those things, then at one point he was practically, like, devotees were trying to expel him from ISKCON, this is a deviation, and, this is not what Prabhupada wanted. And anyways, he persisted, despite a lot of antagonism. And he's been having a lot of success with the Western outreach, attracting Westerners to Krishna consciousness, attracting especially scholars and intellectuals and professionals, and because he's showing them that you don't have to necessarily shave your head and wear funny clothes to be a devotee, to practice Krishna consciousness. You just understand the philosophy, adopt the techniques, chant Hare Krishna, offer your food. That's what it means. It's to do with the consciousness. It's Krishna consciousness. It's a matter of the heart and not the dress. Right. And Prabhupada's very clear about this here. And some devotees say, well, that's okay for a brahmacharya or a grihastha, but not for a sannyasi. That's their argument, not for a sannyasi. But then Prabhupada specifically saying, no, for a sannyasi.
Yep.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's recommended that if that's what it takes to attract people to Krishna consciousness, that's what we do, because that's the prime consideration, not fashion,
We really, in our movement, need to embrace individuality, and that we all have a uniqueness about us that attracts other people. It's our greatest benefit to the world, and yet we have a fear because of things like this. Like, we see somebody do it, and we go, look how he's getting treated. I don't want to be treated like that. What if somebody tells me that I'm in Maya? What if somebody tells me that I'm ridiculous or this and that? And by the way, we want to be careful in the sense of saying like funny clothes or something like that. Now, I understand the point of that, but somebody else feels very authentic in that way. So we don't have to put these labels of this person's wearing this ridiculous clothes. Why don't we just let people be authentic? Let people be comfortable in their shoes. Let their people be comfortable in their clothes, and encourage, instead emphasize the preaching. Connect with people. You feel comfortable? There's a lot of Western devotees that will wear Indian dress, and because they carry it in a certain way, and because they have a certain authenticity, people attract to it. People want to, for some reason, to them it brings some authority. Whereas somebody else wears it, and it's like, I remember the first time I wore a dhoti in Seattle. It was like the first time, and I was walking into a 7-Eleven and some nice dress. My wife and I laughed for like 20 minutes because it was the first time I've ever worn a dhoti, and it was like, I was like, dude, that's funny, It's like, throw your hands kind of moment, like, oh, But my point, though, and I think you guys are hearing me, and I feel like is each person has an authenticity that Krishna appreciates in them. And if we can, instead of trying to put somebody in a box, you're a devotee of this, this, and this, why don't we just understand that there's 4 regular principles and 16 chanting rounds, and that's what brings us all together. And let's do that, and let's encourage each person to be unique in their way. And hey, check on each other. Hey, Prabhu, are you doing okay with your 4 rounds, or 16? 4 rigs and your 16 rounds? And we don't say it because we're concerned that you're wearing something funny, and so therefore I think you're fallen. No, I just have a general desire to be concerned for you. And so I ask it in general. Okay, this takes some mentors. Anyways, it takes some relationship and stuff like that. But it's not. This is our greatest strength, is we have so many people coming from so many different cultures with so many gifts, with so many strengths, and each person can reach a person that isn't in Krishna consciousness. They could reach out to somebody and bring them out there. That's amazing. Just think about it. We were encouraging each devotee with your uniqueness and your own gift, just try to connect with 3 people that have a similarity in the same. Do you like art? Okay, just try to connect with 3 people in art. Be 3 people that don't come to the temple for art, right? Do people come to the temple to do art? Not really. They might go from the picture, the paintings, that's beautiful, but nobody comes to the temple to create artistic expressions, right? Paintings and stuff like that. But if this devotee was just trying to connect with 3 people, not just, anyways, with 3 people from art, they'd be connecting with people that don't come to the temple necessarily. Anyway, sorry, I'll get off my pedestal. I'm sorry. Vyasa-san isn't meant for pedestals. Hare Krishna. Dear devotees, what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to encourage you that you have a uniqueness about you. That you have something in you that is your gift to Krishna. And the sannyas mentality is that it's not mine, it's Krishna's. This belongs to Krishna. My talent belongs to Krishna. And so therefore we should try to do that talent in a way that preaches to others, connects with others. And don't be worried that there's people that won't maybe understand it. It's normal because people don't understand so much out of their influence. But if you do have an issue with it, then connect yourself with somebody who can encourage you in that way. Find a mentor that does it and has gone through that. And then you can live your life in, anyways, nice service for Krishna. Hare Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Pramanande Hari Hari Bo, Vanchika Patribhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha Namaha Hare Krishna.